Good morning. Welcome everyone for our webinar this Saturday morning. Today's topic is Gita Vidya Sadhana with our special guest, Mr. Gopi Prasad. And as Hindu University of America is growing and expanding, we're offering more courses, touching the subjects that we know are important to Hindus. And what is there that is, I don't want to put priorities, but obviously the Bhagavad Gita is one of those very important texts that we need to dig into, explore, search, and learn more about. And we are glad to bring you Mr. Gopi Prasad today, who has an MBA in global management from the Bremen University of Applied Sciences in Germany. He's the founder of Glowman Group. Gopiji serves currently as a visiting faculty in management schools such as the Charya School of Management in Bangalore and St. Joseph's School of Business Administration, also in Bangalore. Mr. Prasad completed his early school education from Sri Aurobindo Centenary School, Tattari, and has been involved in the study of the Bhagavad Gita since childhood. He is associated with the Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research for ongoing study and development of programs on Sri Aurobindo literature and the Bhagavad Gita. His lifelong interest in the Bhagavad Gita led him to the study of various interpretations and commentaries, from which he has developed this three-course Gita Vidya sequence that we'll go into more depth in. He is the recipient of the Sri Sardar Patel Award from the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Foundation in New Delhi, India in 2010. And it is my pleasure to bring on President of HUA, Kalyan Vishwanathan, to give this webinar some context, ask maybe a question in the chat, and then give this webinar some framing. And happy to get this started with all of you wonderful people. Thank you for joining us today. Kalyanji, your turn.
Great. Thank you very much. Gopiji, thank you so much for joining us. Let me begin with a question in the chat window. Can you all kindly answer the question? The question is, where are you from? Where are you all participating from? That's the question. I just want to get a sense of who is here and from where. So if you could kindly answer: Seattle, Northern Virginia, Pasadena, Bay Area, Short Hills, Mathura, India, Columbus, Ohio, New York, San Jose, Augusta, Georgia, Sunnyvale, Texas, Atlanta, New Jersey, El Paso, Bethlehem, United Kingdom, very nice, welcome, Los Angeles, Charleston, West Virginia, Tampa, Florida, Germany, Stuttgart, Hamilton, Massachusetts, San Diego. All right, very nice. Okay, so we got a terrific audience here from a number of different places. So welcome, very warm welcome to all of you. Now, the way I'd like to frame this is the Hindu world is a vast textual world. I mean, vast in the sense incomprehensibly vast. I mean, most of us cannot even name a small fraction of the totality of texts that the Hindu world has created over a long time. In fact, a very long time, much longer than in the Western imagination. Now, it's very difficult to get into that textual world. You must start somewhere. And if you ask the question, where do you start your exploration of the Hindu textual world, the most obvious place to start is the Bhagavad Gita, in the sense that there is one text that we as Hindus should know. If there is one text we as Hindus should learn and assimilate and make a part of our lives, in the sense that we learn to live from the text, we learn to engage with the text and make the text an expression of our lives, because there is so much in that text. it would be the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita, we are going to offer many different forms of engagement with the Bhagavad Gita at the Hindu University of America. So right now, what we have already in our portfolio is a graduate level exploration of the Bhagavad Gita. That is a graduate level course. But we're introducing today a 3-course sequence. The 3 courses are called Gita Vidya Sadhana, Gita Vidya Sodhana, and Gita Vidya Vadhana. Okay, Ankur. So the first word was sadhana. That's how we should pronounce it. All right.
We also offer Sanskrit classes, which will help you with the pronunciation. I'm enrolling in those soon.
All right, good. Sanskrit will be another wonderful place to begin. You should learn the language and then get into the Gita itself. But here, the Gita Vidya is a sequence that will help people engage with the course, engage with the text in a way that you get some of the essential messages and teachings of the text without studying the whole thing. Now, just to give you some context, the full Gita is about 700 verses long. And even that is only a small fraction of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is 100,000 verses long. It's quite incomparable in that sense. There is no other single text like that. But in that vast text called the Mahabharata, the Gita is a small little segment called 700 verses. But even those 700 verses is quite substantive, and to master it takes time, and takes a lot of commitment and dedication. Now, what Gopiji has done, he's kind of zeroed in on a certain number of verses, about 100 odd verses, 116 verses to be precise, which he is going to bring to life in these 3 courses, the Sadhana, Sodhana, and Vadhana course sequence. So it's a wonderful, it sounds wonderful to me as I have explored it with him, and I'm sure you'll all find it great. And it is offered as part of our continuing education curriculum. So before we get into it, I want to introduce Gopi Ji to all of our audiences here today. So Gopi Ji, I want to ask you to start with, when did you first start reading the Bhagavad Gita?
Well, that's very interesting question, and namaste to all, and thanks for inviting me, and I'm so glad and happy to be here amongst you. Kalyanji, the date is at very early age, when I was age 6 and 7, that was in our school, Sri Aurobindo Centenary School, Thadipatri. We are given early morning yoga and meditation in the evening, and Bhagavad Gita during the classes. And the first set of shlokas that I practiced in the school were from Sankhya Yoga, the Sthita Prajna Lakshanas. So yeah, that was from the very early age I started.
Early ages. So I know all of us in the audience have chanted shlokas and verses when we were young under compulsion from our parents and so on. But it is one thing to chant a few shlokas when you're young, but another entirely to get interested and fascinated by these shlokas and the verses to the degree that you have gotten fascinated and interested, right? So what interested you in the Gita? What made it so compelling for you?
At the very beginning, the rhythm itself was quite interesting to me. Somehow my mind and my, the inner body was getting in sync with it. And the more I was reciting together with my students, other colleagues, I was feeling joy just for reciting, not even knowing the meaning, just reciting was giving me such a joy. And that took me in, and that's the first point where I started getting interested more into Bhagavad Gita.
Wonderful. Well, so I think that's a very appropriate time to maybe hear a few verses chanted by you. So why don't you pick any verse you like, or any few set of verses you like, and just chant them so we can hear you.
All right. So there is a set of verses that talk about how the anger emerges, and ध्यायते विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषोपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो विजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहात् सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चा भावयतस्यान्ति अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
Okay, great. So there is a deeply psychological set of verses there, which explores the the emergence of internal crises, if you will, right? The crises of the mind, of the emotions, of the being, the kind of crisis that Arjuna finds himself at the beginning of the war. So wonderful. So now you said that you've studied many different commentaries and translations and so on. Can you give us a sense of which all commentaries you've engaged with, and what has been your general findings from your exploratory journey with the Bhagavad Gita?
The commentaries which I initially started was from that of Sri Aurobindo's essays on Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
And then there was this set of Gita Press publications, and I bought it from Tirumala when I went to Darshan, Lord Venkateshwara. And this was very simple, just the shloka and bhava, not even the commentary. So that's where it all started. And then I got into the commentaries from Adi Shankaracharya, which was then translated by Adidevananda. And then Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, ISKCON founder. So these are some of the commentaries that I read through for all the shlokas.
Okay, great. So now this particular work that you have done in preparing these 3 courses, what was the inspiration behind that, and how did you commence this activity?
It all started very recently. Until then, Bhagavad Gita was always part of me. I recite these shlokas and get through the meanings whenever I feel like. When I wanted to give the same to my children, and they are quite young, 8 years and 6 years, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is too much for them to deal with. And then I thought maybe I start with something little, that biteable chunks that they can take and grasp. Then the question was like, which of those shlokas should I then start with? And that's how the whole exercise started. And then what we did was, with the help of another colleague here in Hamburg, Vaidyanath Das from ISKCON, we got into a kind of exercise where we set out 14 different topics and cut the shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, and we kind of sit and discuss each of the shloka and its meaning, and try to segregate them according to a theme. So that's how the thematic distribution of the shlokas into 14 different categories started. And under each category, then the number of shlokas were again very huge, like 50, 60 under some category. So then for the children, particularly keeping them in mind, I thought they should not be more than 8, 9 shlokas per category. So it is easier for them to get over. And that's how we carefully selected. Again, eliminating the shlokas was the toughest thing that I faced, because every shloka is such a beautiful, useful thing. And it really took a lot of effort, trying to take it from 4 different angles. Is this meaning conveyed in any of the earlier shloka? So those are certain parameters based on which we selected which one shloka can comprehend the other 2 shlokas. Those are the views in which we took it. And finally, I divided that into 14 different categories, each category holding around 8 to 9 shlokas, then total coming to 116 shlokas. This I call it as Gita Shataka. Shataka is a set of 100 or little over 100, anything, poems, or that is Vyakarana principle in Indian languages. So I gave it the name Gita Shataka, the divine wisdom.
Okay. So you mentioned that you had divided it into 14 categories. What are some examples of categories? You don't
These
have
14 categories are then grouped into 4 modules. The first module is about Hindu identity. Now, in this module, there are 4 lessons. That is, God and soul is the first category, in which there are 8 shlokas. First 4 shlokas talk about the soul. Next 2 shlokas talk about the God. And the last 2 shlokas talk about the connection between the God and the soul. So that's how the first lesson itself puts very clear perspective about what are some of the beliefs of Hindu. We believe in rebirth. We believe in reincarnation. We believe in aligning Atma with Paramatma. So all of this comes into the first lesson. Then the second lesson is about how to lead your life. And there are 2 dimensions in which Bhagavad Gita kind of portrays. One is with controlling your senses and rationally satisfying them, and then going ahead with them. Then the other one is Indriya Trupti. So one is Indriya Nigraha, the other one is Indriya Trupti. And we have the set of shlokas when one chooses to lead a life with Indriya Nigraha as the principle. So how to go about it? And then Indriya Trupti, what does it lead you into? Where do you land up once you go in that path? And then the last one in that first category is about the body and mind. Bhagavad Gita tells very splendidly about the composition of this body and the elements of nature, and how the mind and body are functioning together and how to deal with them. So this is how the first module. And then the second module is about outer wisdom, which talks about the social wisdom, physical wisdom, occupational wisdom. And then there are a set of 3 again in the inner wisdom, which is mental wisdom. You have spiritual wisdom, emotional wisdom. And then the last 4 lessons are about the 4 different paths in Hindu Dharma, the pathways as we call them. So karma, jnana, dhyana, and bhakti. And there is a brief description about what is karma yoga and what are some of the fundamentals. When one chooses to lead karma yoga based life, then what are the guiding principles? Likewise to jnana, dhyana, and bhakti.
Great. Excellent. Now you have a few slides to share, right? Why don't you walk us through your slides, and then I'll ask some questions as we move along, and then we'll open it up for some audience questions. Okay. So
great. So this is the first slide, and Bhagavad Gita, the divine wisdom, is known to have been delivered in the context of Kurukshetra by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. The Dhyana Shloka of Bhagavad Gita is as follows. Pathaya pratiboditam bhagavata narayanena swayam vyasena grathitam purana munina madhye mahabharatam. Advaitamrutavarshiniim Bhagavati Mastadasadhyayiniim Amba Tvam Anusandhadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim. Now this prayer shloka very clearly describes the context of whole of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is taught to Arjuna
Gopi,
by
we can't
Lord.
see. Gopi, we can't see the slide. What are you? Are you sharing something right now?
No,
Okay.
I'm just giving the narration behind this slide. Can you see the first slide?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, great. So as the Dhyana Shloka clearly tells that the Bhagavad Gita was told by Sri Krishna to Arjuna during the Mahabharata and during the Kurukshetra war. Now the question is, did this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, the divine wisdom, occur exactly during the time of war, or did it exist even before? So to answer that question, then I like to go before in each of the adhyaya when it starts. Atha prathamodhyayaha Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Then it ends with Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Pratamodhyayaha. That's how the chapter ends. And now if you observe there is this word called Brahma Vidyayam. Now which says, what is Brahma Vidya? Now, Brahma Vidya means the supreme of all Vidya, all wisdom is Brahma Vidya. Now, this word Brahma is also used in many occasions. For example, we have Brahmastra. The supreme of all astras is Brahmastra. Brahma Karma, which means the supreme of all actions is Brahma Karma. So the supreme of all wisdoms is Brahma Vidya. Now, in the same Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter 4, Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Vacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanavam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manur Vikshvakave Bravit Evam Parampara Praptam Mimam Rajarshayo Viduhu Sakale Neha Mahata Yogo Nastah Parantapa स एवां मया तेध्या योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्त्योऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं हेतुदुत्तमम्. These three shlokas which are told by Bhagavan in the chapter 4, they tell that initially this knowledge, Brahma Vidya, was given to Surya Bhagavan. And Surya Bhagavan gave it to Manu. Manu gave it to Ikshvaku. And that's how it transcended from the sages and Maharshis. But somewhere in the time, this great wisdom is lost. And there says Sri Krishna that this, to be kept as a secret, a very useful knowledge, I am giving it to you because you are my devotee and you are my friend. And then Arjuna asks in all humbleness, Arjuna Vacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Katameta Dvijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavaniti. Hey Krishna, you belong to Dwapara Yuga, and Vaivasvata, the Surya Bhagavan, belongs to Kalpadi. He is much earlier than you. So how am I to understand that you gave this wisdom to Surya? Then in answer, Bhagavan says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Vettah Parantapa. You and me.
Luigi, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just the screen is not sharing. It's a blank screen. If you're showing the sloka when you're reciting, or when you're, can you just stop sharing, and then if you're just gonna.
Okay. So when I'm reciting, the screen is getting lost, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So that's it. That was the last one. So basically, why I presented all these set of shlokas is to establish the point that this great wisdom, Brahma Vidya, was from very early from stages, the Kalpadi, and then it was reiterated by Sri Krishna during the Kurukshetra war. That's how it came back again. Then it is viewed, understood, and interpreted differently by different acharyas. So we have, starting from Adi Shankaracharya in 800 AD, gave bhashya to Bhagavad Gita. And then in 1050, we have Sri Ramanujacharya gave a bhashya to Bhagavad Gita. And likewise, Madhvacharya, and even to the recent times, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, Mahatma Gandhi, Annie Besant, even the Westerners gave bhashya to Bhagavad Gita. So the knowledge is preserved and carried forward. And of late, this great wisdom is translated into different languages from time to time, and this is shared around the world. So we are benefiting with all this knowledge that is being from time to time refreshed and offered to us. Now, what is Gita Vidya aiming at? Now, Gita Vidya is an endeavor to invoke the divine wisdom by chanting the verses, to understand its essence by exploring the views, to realize its effect by practical application. Now, how are we going to do this? We are going to do this through a process of sadhana, sodhana, and vadhana. Now, what is sadhana going to be? Now, sadhana is focusing on the guided chanting of selected shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, followed by interactive discussion on their meaning. Let me show you how the guided chanting is going to be done. So I'm going to share another slide here. So you can see on the screen, there is a website, and here we have all the selected shlokas, Gita Shatakam, and here the module 1, and I will share one of the video which actually gives a kind of a guided
नत्वन्नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम् देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति
So that's how we are going to see how these slides are going to show one by one the detailed pronunciation. So how to pronounce the shloka, is shown in the videos, and we have it in multiple languages. So we have it in Telugu, some of the Indian languages. Also, we have it in German language. Let me take you to the website once again. As you see on the programs, all of this will come in a detailed input later. But just right now, for a small kind of an impression I'm sharing, like for example, if you are clicking on the Telugu version, so it takes you through the Telugu part of it. Now I'll share that particular thing. So all of that will be available in Telugu, likewise in Tamil, likewise in Kannada, and so on and so forth. And the reading material is also downloadable, and all of this will be provided again from Hindu University of America's website for the participants. Now let me take you back to the presentation where we start. So that is how the guided chanting is going to be. The objective of the guided chanting is to give an exact pronunciation. Each of these shlokas are there is a chandasu, there is a vyakarana, there is a grammar, and once we follow that rhythm, pronouncing all shlokas is more or less easier. So just to get you into the right format of pronunciation, this guided chanting has been done from a very authentic Sanskrit acharyas. We got it recorded and then made it available for the course. And once the guided chanting is done, there will be an interactive discussion about the meaning of these shlokas. So that is where we are going to have on the weekends. And students will acquire an overview of Hindu Dharma from a spiritual perspective that can enrich their life. Most of the shlokas in Bhagavad Gita lay the foundation for all our Hindu principles, customs, traditions, and beliefs. The next is Sodhana. The Sodhana, as the word already suggests, that we are searching. Now, what are we searching? We are searching the meanings of the shlokas, these 116 shlokas, from three different commentaries of three different acharyas. Now, why we made it in such way in the particular course is to present a kind of a comprehensive understanding about the shloka. When a particular acharya has given from his viewpoint a meaning, translation of the shloka, it presents his point of view. It's almost like standing on one bank of the pond and looking the beauty of the pond. And then there is another point of view from the other angle. And there is a third point of view from the third angle. And it's my belief that when I get to all these 3 points at 3 different angles of the pond and get to see the pond and its beauty, I will be having a broader understanding about the pond. And in similar way, when we are able to see the perspectives of 3 different acharyas, it could be even 3 different languages and we are giving a choice for the participants, for the students to pick up one from our list and one from their own choice. And the idea is there will be a Bhava Sanchaya, a kind of a workbook will be provided. And in this workbook, the students are going to copy the meaning from 3 different Bhagavad Gitas and write down in the page under the shloka. So this is how the Shodhana work is going to go on. This will help students acquire a deeper understanding of Bhagavad Gita and gain an appreciation for the plurality of spiritual perspectives and pathways within Hindu Dharma. We have so many sampradayas.
So Gopiji, just a quick question.
Yeah.
You're saying 3 different acharyas. Let's go back to that slide.
Yeah.
Now, are they 3 specific acharyas, or is that the students get to choose which three acharyas they want to explore?
They can choose. So we would give a kind of an indication, and students can choose if they are coming from one particular sampradaya or they like a particular sampradaya. They could very well choose that particular translation of Bhagavad Gita. In addition to it, they will have to choose two more.
Okay, and they can choose from a finite list that you are giving them, but also go outside that list and pick somebody entirely outside that list, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In
Wonderful.
fact, this question actually takes my attention to the recent Super Gita, which is provided by IIT Kanpur, which has 18 different Bhagavad Gita commentaries, and they're very beautifully put up and we can get in one place a kind of a contrast of different commentaries available. So there are many such places. We at least suggest pick up 3 from different acharyas. Now this will fetch students a deeper understanding, and from there the knowledge that they have gained, the chanting of shlokas has invoked the divine wisdom. The Sodhana has given a kind of a meaning and understanding of those shlokas. Now the third part is Vadhana. Vadhana is more of a case studies and discussion and debate. Now, this is going to be a very interesting part of the whole course, where just like in management schools and management programs, where we are given a case study, and then the students are required to apply the management theories and find out, what is the point in that particular case and what could have been done differently or things like that. So we are adopting the same methodology here in Vadhana. We give kind of hypothetical as well as real life case scenarios to the students. They will be in a story format, and students will get into a small groups of 3 to 5, and they discuss. Although it all happens virtually, we do have technical tools available to conduct discussions through internet between 2 or 3 people. So we try to make use of all those technical features and conduct this discussion among the students. And there the students are going to discuss and apply the knowledge that they have gained from sadhana and sodhana, and try and see how, based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita, the problem in the case can be resolved. So this is the very practical part of the whole teaching the lessons. And this is how the 3 sadhana, sodhana, vadhana are constructed in the course.
There is a question from John Millman saying, what is the meaning of the word Sodhana? I'm not able to find it in the dictionary.
Well, Sodhana is a Sanskrit word. Actually, it's an Indian word. It is search. The meaning of it is to search, to investigate, maybe. So now let me take you through the course, about the course. The course actually highlights 6 dimensions of wisdom, as you can see in this little flower with 6 different colors. So they're like physical, social, occupational, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So let me take you through the description of the course. The course focuses on 116 shlokas, verses, selected out of 700 shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, thematically structured into 4 modules: Hindu identity, outer wisdom, inner wisdom, and Hindu pathways. These are the 4 modules we get it. And in the second and third modules, we get 6 dimensions of divine wisdom: physical dimension of the divine wisdom, the social dimension of the divine wisdom, occupational, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So each of this gives a very deep perspective about the Hindu society, Hindu methods, Hindu beliefs, Hindu systems. There is a lot to learn from these particular module. Now, what is the objective of Gita Vidya program? What do we want to achieve through these programs? One, we want to gain an overview of Hindu identity, wisdom, and pathways for spiritual growth of our participants. Two, gain a deeper understanding of Bhagavad Gita by comparing interpretations of various acharyas. So there is no kind of agreement or disagreement here. It is only for a better understanding, we kind of compare the meanings and try to get. My personal experience, my mother tongue is Telugu. We speak Telugu at home. And when I read the Telugu translation of Bhagavad Gita, my ability to perceive the meaning is much higher than when I do it with the English version. So that's when I figured out that when you read three different versions of the translations or the commentaries, the chances are bright that we get to the real meaning or close to the real meaning of that particular shloka. Then comprehend the simultaneous coexistence of diverse understandings of divine wisdom. Now, this is a very important aspect. Hindu dharma is such a plural in nature, and there is always room for discussion, debate, between two different point of views. In whole of our Hindu dharma, if you see, for example, the Bhagavad Gita itself is a kind of a dialogue between Bhagavan and Arjuna. And Arjuna, there are over 50 shlokas in which he has several questions that he asks Bhagavan, and very patiently Bhagavan answers all of those questions. So it is always kind of a seeking way of approaching the Hindu dharma, and that is what we would like to enjoy, celebrate the kind of plurality that we have in Hindu dharma through comparison, and students should be able to comprehend the simultaneous coexistence of diverse understanding of divine wisdom. Then gain practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita and its application in life. Bhagavad Gita offers such a beautiful wisdom, and each of those principles are so eternal in nature. They are applicable in the ancient world, in the present world, in the modern world, even into the future. It is time tested. The values and the virtues in Bhagavad Gita are eternal. They are applicable for any time. And so we would like to see the ways of using it and adopting it into our day-to-day life. That is the objective of Gita Vidya program. Now, the content per se, the program has three parts: sadhana, sodhana, and vadhana. And what we do is we kind of take active, interactive, and collaborative ways of online learning. What do I mean by active learning? Where there is a reading material through online, through PDFs that we are going to provide. People can do self-study, swadhyay, that is what we call it in Bhagavad Gita again. So self-learning, that is the active mode. Interactive is during the class hours, where there will be a guided discussions and reflection of thoughts and understandings. That is peer-to-peer learning will also happen during these interactive sessions. And then the collaborative is where we give these case studies, and 2 or 3 people put together are going to work on these particular case studies. And these are going to be very interesting, kind of experience where you kind of enjoy your understanding about Bhagavad Gita, applying it on a case, and then taking the joy of it. This is the 3: active, interactive, collaborative, through online. And the course material is available in multiple languages. We are trying to reach out to as many people as possible, as many languages as possible. So we still continue to bring more and more languages into the fold, but the classrooms will be conducted in English. That is to keep a kind of a common language. That is what we do in the interactive sessions. In the last slide of today's presentation, that is Gita Vidya program's structure. So the structure, it has 3 courses with specific contact hours for each course. The classes they are structured in a way that promotes discussion and debate based on self-study and reflection each week, followed by evaluation at the end of the course. There will be oral examination for the sadhana course. There will be an assignment at the end of Sodhana course. There will be a case study for at the end of Vadhana course. And that's how the evaluation also will happen. With this, I complete my today's presentation and I'm open for questions.
Yeah. So we'll take a few questions here. Let's see. What age groups is this course available for? Would it be available for elementary school level also?
Well, the answer is yes. In fact, the first inauguration of this course, I did it in the same school where I studied. So we did it for the class, 3, 4, and 5, which means the age groups of 6, 7, and 8. The children were so enthusiastic. They very quickly learned and by hearted these shlokas. We have a couple of their videos. I'm so fascinated by looking at how young children are so fast in grasping and by hearting the rhythm of Bhagavad Gita shlokas, and they memorized quite fast.
Now,
some questions about the timeline, the date, the cost. I'm dropping a link to the details in the chat where you can click and see all those specifics. So please take a look at that. Then we have.
So Ankur, just one before you go. So on the duration, so the each course is a 1 quarter course. So at HUA we have a quarter system, and the first course is a 1.5 credit hour course, the Gita Vidya Sadhana Course. And that is beginning in the second week of January, and it will meet once a week, Gopiji, online.
Yes. Once a week online, the interactive sessions.
Right. So please look at the schedule. If you just click on that link, you can go to the course page, course description page on the website. And it's a $200 course. It's relatively easily priced, and it's a great way to begin your engagement with the Bhagavad Gita. Let's take a few more questions.
Shretji would like to ask their question by audio. I can unmute them.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My question was, we talked about, thank you very much. We talked about using 3 methodologies from, like, for example, 18, right? To compare 3 interpretations. So if two people take different 3, right, from the 18, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, is the understanding, how similar is the understanding then? Because these are 2 different sets of 3 from the 18, and how many, and if the understanding is not similar, then how many do you take to reach saturation? Like at 6 or 7 different set of 7, it will give you that, or like why the number 3? Why not 2? Why not 4? Why not 5? Like, why 3?
Okay.
Well, we encourage the students in the class to take 3, and I will be really happy if each student is taking 3 different than the other student. It actually brings more amount of wisdom into the class. Let's not forget, all these interpretations are about the same sloka. So I have gone through more than 10 by now. It's only in case of very few shlokas that commentaries tend to be too diverse. But in majority of the shlokas, it is very difficult. It has to be reading between the lines to actually find out that fine difference between 2 commentaries. And yeah, to answer your question, it only adds to the whole knowledge, and the more diverse interpretations that come into the class, everybody will benefit out of it.
So let me take this question in a slightly different direction, if you don't mind, Gopiji.
Sure. Thank you.
So Shwet, when you use the word saturation, okay, what exactly do you mean by that?
Oh, what I mean is that uh, at some point the understanding has to get towards objectivity and the truth, right? So I'm wondering, like, if it's all interpreted differently by different people, then what is the essence you take away? At what point do you reach the essence?
So
After two,
great.
after three, after five, after six?
Yeah, it's a great question. Okay, so I think this notion of objective truth. Okay, objective truth is itself something you have to inquire into,
Right.
in the sense that, is there an objective truth without a subject participating in that?
Right.
Yeah. So all truth is ultimately relative. And this is one of the core foundational principles of Sanatana Dharma, that that as your search for truth leads you from a lower level of understanding, a lower level truth, to a higher level truth. And even that higher level truth turns out to be incomplete, and there is a still higher level truth, and so on. So therefore, the search is almost an infinite search. And the same verse that revealed a certain meaning to you when you were 20 years of age will reveal an entirely different meaning to you when you're 70 years of age.
True.
Or when you're 50 years of age. So in other words, the validity of the book, the text, the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, is that they keep revealing nuances of meaning, different shades of understanding, different ways of comprehending, even in a single person's life, let alone multiple people. So therefore, I would say, let's not worry about saturating. Let's get a grasp of it, a perspective on it, and I think that would be a great start, actually.
Right. Got it. Thanks. Yeah.
Very good. So now let's go to some other questions. Which one shall I pick up here? Yeah, this course is, there are every course at HUA is, is structured in the sense it's scheduled. There is a particular date and time when the classes are held, much like this webinar. So everybody comes into the class, and then there is online active conversations that are taking place. So that's how it is. It's not a self-study oriented where you pay for a course and then you download it and you study it at your own leisure. No, these are structured, pre-scheduled, quarter-long courses. That is my response to Kannan Srinivasan's question.
Yeah, you on your own schedule to read and do the assignments and make sure that you're prepared for those structured classes.
So somebody's asking, S. Majumdar is asking, there was no Hindu religion in Sri Krishna's time. So let's give that a little bit of a handling here. How is it universal? Well, it doesn't matter what you call it, Majumdar ji. Its universality has to be discovered personally. Okay. Don't worry about whether it's universal or not. If you engage with it for yourself, and if you find something of value in the Bhagavad Gita, that's adequate for now. And as to whether Hindu religion was there in the Sri Krishna's time, I'll tell you two things. Neither the word Hindu nor the word religion was there in Sri Krishna's time. And you and our ancestors, we learnt English from the British. So you can forget about Hindu religion being there at Sri Krishna's time. There were other terms of reference. There was another language at that time. It was a completely different conversation. Okay, let's go on to some other questions. Anonymous attendee, I'm not going to answer an anonymous attendee. Kindly change your name and we can answer. Do you have Gita online for children under 18 or a book for them in English or Hindi? Gita online. Well, under 18 children can join this class, right?
Yes.
What is the youngest age you would recommend?
6 minimum.
Wow. So there you go. 6 onwards. Is there a word-by-word philosophical explanation? There are many. There are many philosophical commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. What are the benefits for this class? Okay, anonymous attendee is saying, I'm in 7th grade and interested in joining. Okay. So I'm going to excuse the anonymous attendee here. What are the benefits of for this class, Gopiji?
The benefits are immense. It depends on what we can take. It's almost like going to the lake and take how much of water we take in. That's kind of very cliche, but the benefit at the very early age is that you get the pronunciation of Bhagavad Gita. It gets into your subconscious, and believe me, once stored into your subconscious mind, this is such a wonderful kind of thing to have, that throughout the life it starts revealing us many ways of truth. So that's the one aspect of it. Second, there are many questions that come. For example, when I took this course in Sri Aurobindo Centenary School, Tadpatri, and we gave an introduction of the course, and I gave the first lesson as a first test lesson. And that lesson clearly explains what is the soul, what is God, and what is the connection between soul and God. And the very young child at age 8, she came up and asking, so why is it that there are so many gods? And then the shloka itself is very clearly telling in the first. So, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyurtanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamya. Just like the soul taking rebirth to complete its karma, the God is also taking reincarnation to establish dharma. And whenever there is a rise of adharma, and he is coming, so definitely we need more and more forms of God to come and make that good for us. And that's how there are so many incarnations of the God. It may not be different gods, but it is different incarnation of the God. So that was she was so happy to get that answer, and I was so delighted that she goes back with satisfaction. So the benefits are many, starting from very simple clarification and a kind of appreciation to our own dharma, and getting it validated from Bhagavad Gita is such a beautiful thing.
So here's a question. Can old people also join this course? Of course, yes, right?
Of course. I mean, one
no
of my
upper
best
limit.
student is my mother, actually. She's 74 now, and she likes my work so much. And she took it to, kind of memorizing all the shlokas. And she also recorded and sent it, which is a great motivation for me and great appreciation for my work. And at 74, she's just like, she's a retired school teacher for that matter. But she sees herself as a student now. So age is not a limit.
So there's a question from Karthik Shyam Sundar. Is the first course only recitation?
Recitation and interaction to understand the meaning.
Right. Very good. Ishwar is asking a question.
So the Gita is both Yoga Shastra and Brahma Vidya. Depending on the person approaching it, the emphasis is more on one over the other. Maybe that's something you have to comment on. So Gopiji, what will be the emphasis of your course?
My course is at a very preliminary level. It's getting to know about the meaning of Bhagavad Gita and the shlokas. I am introducing within the available resources. We are lucky to have so much of abundant resources around Bhagavad Gita, so many translations, so many essays, and everything is nowadays available online. So my course will kind of give you the way to make a search and make your own study about Bhagavad Gita. So it actually positions you in midst of this abundant information in a way to make advantage, make benefit out of that information.
Can I launch only question?
So I want to pick up a question. There's a 12-year-old here, Kalpana, who's asking, what are different interpretations? Can you please give examples? Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways to answer this question. One is to give examples from within the Bhagavad Gita itself, but I think we should hold off on that and let her go into the class. But Kalpana, I want to give you an example, a different an analogy, if you will. Okay. So the analogy is like this. So if I say the human body is made up of atoms and molecules. The human being is made up of atoms and molecules. If I say that, would I be correct? Would I be correct? Kalpana, just answer the question, okay? Give me an answer. Put it in the chat window. Yes. Now, suppose I say the human being is made up of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and all kinds of other minerals and materials. Would I be right? Would I be correct? Yes or no? Yes. So if I say a human being is made up of hopes and dreams and aspirations and wants and needs and desires and ambitions and frustrations and sadness and happiness and so on, would I be right? Is that correct? So you see, these are all simultaneously correct. Is it not? They're all simultaneously valid. Yeah? It's not like if one is true, the other has to be false. So therefore, the true false orientation, right? My interpretation is true. Therefore, your interpretation is false. That's a very peculiar orientation that comes from an Abrahamic background. An Abrahamic background, meaning I've got the truth, therefore you must have the false. My religion is true, therefore your religion is false. Whereas in the Hindu world, there is the simultaneous validity of different perspectives, different angles of approach, different interpretations. Okay, so that's an analogy to understanding different interpretations. Now, let me ask you, Kalpana, was that helpful? Give me an answer. Was it helpful? Yeah, very good, Kalpana. Good. So I think if you get that when you're 12 years old, your life is done, okay? Your life is made, because human beings spend half their life arguing that they are right and the other person is wrong. Isn't it? If you just get that, I have a perspective and you may have a different perspective, then I can learn about your perspective. You can learn about my perspective. We can all have a very good time. Isn't it? So CBS Patelji is saying it is similar to 5 blind persons describing an elephant. Yeah, that's true. I mean, with reference to the elephant, yes, the 5 blind people, but with reference to this world, the universe, our life, creation, this jagat, soul and body, and what is his life for, and so on. We may have our eyes open, but we are still somewhat blind, isn't it? Because we only see partially. All right, how many hours of study per week will it take for the first course? How many hours per week of study?
It depends on your familiarity with any of the Indian languages, because the shlokas being in Sanskrit, and all those people who have some base with any of the Indian language will be relatively faster. And those who do not have any familiarity with any of the Indian languages, they may take double the time. But overall, within that quarter, everybody will be in a position to pronounce the shloka.
So in a week, maybe 3 hours, you think?
Yeah. So after the interactive class, with this online tool that is available, if you go by the practice, 2-3 hours of practice, you will be able to even memorize the shloka.
Okay. All right. Shweti is saying you have a follow-up question. Can you ask your question, follow-up question?
Okay, yeah, I was just asking for getting unmuted. So, Kalyanji, you mentioned about different interpretations as we grow older, and even at the same age, two different people may have different interpretations. It's very subtle, subject, object. Agreed.
Yeah.
So, when Lord Krishna gave when he spoke, right, to Arjun, that's where
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita comes from in Mahabharata, right?
Yeah.
At that time, what Lord Krishna interpreted it as, right? So obviously, by implication, that's also not absolute. So what he meant is not what Arjun would have understood in a different way than what Lord Krishna would have understood it. Or was that absolute? I mean, so how do you talk about Lord Krishna's preaching?
Yeah.
The message he preached.
So even in the Gita, what you find is, as you go through the Bhagavad Gita, you find that Arjuna keeps asking questions again and again. He asks us this way, he asks the question another way. He says, how am I to understand this? I'm confused. I don't get it. In fact, Gopiji, you kind of traced just the set of questions that Arjuna has asked, right? If you extract from the Bhagavad Gita just the 6 set of questions that Arjuna asks, that itself can become a kind of a course, in it approaches the Gita just from Arjuna's standpoint. So, the point being that, see, understanding is gradual. He sometimes he seems to understand, sometimes his understanding is limited and partial. He asks a follow-on question, just like you are doing right now. And and Krishna keeps on elaborating with every question that Arjuna asks. So
like
Gopiji, yeah. So Gopiji, you're saying Arjuna asked about 50 questions in the Bhagavad Gita.
There are 50 shlokas, and there are several questions. Some questions have 2 shlokas, some questions have single shloka. So what I've done is I kind of picked up unique 8 questions by Arjuna, and I call it as Arjuna Prashnashtakam. And if you see the questions, the way they kind of escalate to a higher level of understanding, the sequence of Arjuna's questions itself is such a nice, like Kalyanji rightly mentioned, it itself is a course by itself. And each question is leading to a kind of another book full of answers. So, for example, the first question that I picked up is Sthita Pragnas Seka Bhasha Kimastita Vrajetikam. So he's asking about the characteristics of Sthita Pragna, the one with the balanced consciousness. And from that level, the next question he's asking is about how am I to understand I'm just searching that particular document here as I'm talking to you. Yeah. And then this second question is asking Jayasi Chetkaram Naste Mata Buddhir Janadana Tatkim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyojayasi Kesava. He's saying that, hey Krishna, when you say Jnana is better than action, why are you engaging me in this war, which is such a heinous activity? And let's not forget, the whole conversation started when Arjuna put down his bow and arrow and said that I'm not going to fight. And the objective of whole Bhagavad Gita recitation during Kurukshetra was to take away all that kind of blocks in the mind of Arjuna and make him ready to the war. So the perspective of Bhagavad Gita as a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, as rightly you picked up, Mr. Swet, was Krishna wanted to clarify and make his mind free of all those worthless constraints that he's having in order to do his own dharma, which is to do the war and be instrument of establishing dharma at that time. Likewise, if you look at from a sannyasi, if he looks at Bhagavad Gita, now he's not getting into war, but then he is in a different paradigm. He too has certain knowledge to gain from these same shlokas, and hence every person from his perspective, be he is in some sort of active job or some service or whatever the kind of life that you are leading in this world, you will benefit from Bhagavad Gita from your own perspective. And hence, the way to deal with Bhagavad Gita is more of self-learning, so we can only be instruments to you. All this course that we are going to put forth is only a kind of a preparation so that you become capable of handling the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita on yourself. And the best way to do it is applying, experimenting and realizing the fact of it.
Thank you, Gopiji, Kalyanji. And
Very good, very good.
Can I launch a question for our audience to answer? Just two questions. If you're interested in enrolling, it helps us capture the information. As Gopiji just said, this is an opportunity for you to expand your own understanding and knowledge, and this will provide a space. Please let us know if you're interested. And I have another little question on how would you categorize your understanding and familiarity with the Bhagavad Gita? And please take a quick second to answer these two questions. And let's get back to, we have 4 people with their hands up in the participant. We still have 5 or 6 questions in the Q&A box. We're at 10:10. We usually go a little bit over, but let's try to respect everyone's time and get through these questions in the next 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, so please everybody take the poll and answer the questions, the 2 questions. It'll take you just 30 seconds. So Dikshita is asking, another 8-year-old, she's asking, is it possible in Telugu? So I'm assuming you're asking, is the text available in Telugu? The answer is
yes,
absolutely, absolutely. Then Dhanu Murthy is asking a question, how many students will be enrolled on the average for this course? And see, I can tell you, I would see, I think from the standpoint of the university, if we have fewer than 15 students, we'd probably not have the course at all. We'll cancel it because it's too small a course. But on the average, we'd like to have somewhere in the range of 30 students for this course, if possible. That's what we are. This is the very first time we are offering this course in the winter quarter. So I hope we have at least 30 students taking this course.
A follow-up question kind of on this, and maybe we could just think it out and ask Gopiji. Raginiji in the chat box asks, will the students be grouped by age? It seems like there's a couple of different students who are interested in this. Is the discussion going to be full class? Will it be breakout sessions with different age groups and topics? How are you going to kind of manage potentially the range of students who will be in your course?
That's a very interesting question. And so if you observe the sadhana, sodhana, and vadhana, and then active, interactive, and collaborative, there is a room for smaller groups. And there we try to kind of bring people of same age group for the case studies particularly, so that they are at a comparable level of discussion. And with respect to sadhana and sodhana is more of a self-progress, so that's kind of age doesn't play very, kind of a crucial role there. That can be easily handled during the class.
So Bhuvan Pekurel is asking how many credits is this course? So the first course is 1.5 credits. Okay. Then the second course, I understand, is 2.5 credits, right, Gopiji? And then the final
the first course is 1.5 credits, and second Sodhana is 2.5 credits, and Vadhana is 1 credit.
Yeah, so it's a total of 5 credits over 3 quarters. It's a 3-quarter immersion in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so here is an interesting question. Somebody called Keshav is saying, the world is divided because of my God is right and your God is wrong. Yeah, that's true. So as soon as you get so attached to your God, you become antagonistic to other gods. It's a very sad thing. And really speaking, the good thing about Sanatana Dharma is that it encouraged different visualizations of the divine, and allowed for that coexistence. Has everybody taken the survey? Do we have the results? Can we show it?
I've got 44 out of 70 people at 62% who have completed it after 4 minutes. We still have 5 questions up in the hand. I'll share the polling results in a minute. John, you have your hand up in the participant menu. If you want to ask your question, please unmute yourself and ask now. All right, next person is Gita Rajji. I will allow them as well. First person to unmute and ask your question, go ahead. Unless you accidentally raise your hand, and just let me know and put your hand down. Gita Rajji, no? All right, next we have Tata Charji.
Okay, here's a question from Ajit Roy. It says, you refer to 10 Vasyas. I don't understand what that is. 10 Vasyas? If you're asked to choose one, what would it be?
Bhashya is commentary.
Yeah, Bhashyas is commentary, correct. There are many commentaries. You get to pick the ones, three that you like, that you want to work with. Yes, please.
John's question he put in the chat. The first one is $200. The other 2 courses, are they going to be the same price? Is it going to change? I mentioned the second course is 2.5 units, so it's going to be more.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more. So maybe 300 for the second course, and then maybe we'll be down to 200 again for the third course. So that's the way it is.
It looks like Tata Taji unmuted themselves. If you want to ask your question, go ahead. Unmuted yourself. All right. Did we get, we got Keshavji's question. You have your hand raised. I'm going to put that down unless you have a separate question. Okay. And Aniruddhaji, you're the last person who has their hand up. All right. So maybe people raise their hand and.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah. So when we join the course, can the spouse join with us, or is it just one person per course?
Each person must become a student, a paying student. So
Okay.
Basically you're asking, can I bring 2 students for one registration?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's a Zoom meeting, so I thought it's a valid question. But anyway, it's fine. Thanks.
Well, another reason is because you have a learning management system. You get your own @hua.edu email address. You log into the course materials. You have separate student kind of assignments that you'd be submitting. All those things, but that's kind of the background.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So Kalpana is asking, will you be emailing the information on fees and start dates? Can you put in the link for the course again, Ankur, into the chat window?
And you can enroll right there through this link that I'm dropping in the chat right now.
If you just click on the link, you'll go to the course page, and it's very easy to register from there. I would encourage everybody to register immediately rather than wait, because then we can be sure that we are getting the course filled up. Okay, let's see the survey results, Ankur.
We'll share the results. Can you see it?
Yep.
So the first question, how would you categorize your understanding and familiarity with the Bhagavad Gita? I know some people can't see the poll. If you're on your phone, it might be a little bit difficult. And the answers were 15%, 7 out of the 47 people who answered said they have not read the Bhagavad Gita before. 45%, 21 out of 47, which is the majority, said, that you've read it, but you didn't fully grasp it. 34% of the people, 16 out of 47, say that they read the Gita regularly and study it. And 4 out of 47 say other. I just left it because I'm sure there's other ideas. And it looks like there's pretty good interest in this course. So that's good to hear in that second part of the question. Kalyanji or Gopiji, your reflections on hearing what the audience's experience is with the Gita.
Well, that's interesting to see the poll results, and we kind of get it everywhere in the similar, more or less similar pattern when we ask these questions. So I'm not surprised. It's close to the very natural answers.
Great. I'm going to take some of these folks who have answered questions off of the panelists. We still have Tatacharji and Vanitaji. If you want to ask your question, your last opportunity before we wrap up this wonderful webinar launching this cutting edge, new, important course series at HUA. A lot of people have been asking about it. And as Kalyanji and we mentioned earlier, we have a graduate level course, which is at a different level. That, but this is, again, made to be more open, inviting, and from 6 years on to however old you are, please enroll in this. And one of the beautiful parts about all of these HUA classes is you get connected with other people who are particularly interested in this same space. The conversations are interesting and engaging, lively, and obviously, as Gopiji has demonstrated, he is extremely knowledgeable on this issue and friendly and warm and willing to answer questions and engage. And so I think this is going to be a very powerful series of courses HUA is going to launch in 2021 as part of our continuing effort to, lead in this space in terms of the intellectual work that Hindus need to do to make our presence and share our dharma in a significant and important way.
So there is a question here. Will you be teaching any of the women's points of view of influences in the Gita? Well, interestingly, at least one woman I know who has written a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita is Annie Besant, right? Annie Besant, who's obviously a
Theosophical Society.
A British woman who was part of the Theosophical Society. She's written a commentary. But I think, there could be more women's commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita as far as I'm concerned. And some of you ladies should take up writing some modern commentary on the Bhagavad Gita as well.
And in fact, this course offers that opportunity, Kalyanji.
Yeah.
The Sodhana part of the course is where you all get a workbook. The workbook is called Bhava Sanchaya. The Bhava Sanchaya means this collection of meanings. And after having copied 3 different bhavas from 3 different Bhagavad Gitas, there is the end of the course is to have your own understanding explained in your own words. Idea is not to see that you are master of that information by then, but at least you started thinking about it. That's definitely possible.
Okay, wonderful. So I, just to close, see, I'll just give you my experience. I have read the Bhagavad Gita commentaries from many different perspectives myself. I have read, for example, I have read Swami Dayananda Saraswati's Bhagavad Gita Home Study Program, which is a massive, massive commentary. And I've had the privilege of reading it end to end. I have read Balagangadhar Tilak's Bhagavad Gita Rahasya, which is in two volumes. That's a very interesting, very, very engaging commentary. I've also read Sri Aurobindo's essays on the Gita. I have read Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan's book on the Bhagavad Gita. Like that. I've read a few more. I've read Eknath Ishwaran's translation of the Bhagavad Gita, and so on. So I think the bottom line is that with every time you read a verse, it offers completely new insights. Second and fourth commentaries, John, in what sequence did I express them? I mean, the Bal Gangadhar Tilak was the second one. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Gita Rahasya. It's a fantastic work. It was written during India's freedom struggle with the British, and his interpretation brings the whole, the whole exhortation of his fellow Indians to struggle against the British, to get them out of their country. And it's see, each person interpreting is influenced by their particular time and period in which they live, the circumstances which they lived in, the challenges they faced, the background they brought into the interpretation. So when you're left with an interpretation several centuries later, you don't have the benefit of fully being able to comprehend the circumstances that gave rise to that particular interpretation, right? So I think the third one I said was Radhakrishnan, maybe Sri Aurobindo's essays on the Gita. And there are many new ones. There's one very recent one that's been done by Jeffrey Armstrong. It's a very new one. It just came out really in the last few weeks. And there is one by Graham Schweig. He's done a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. So, I mean, this book obviously seems to be fascinating to people from different ages and times and eras and contexts and circumstances and historical backdrops. So that's what makes it timeless. What makes it timeless is that it comes alive time and again, time after time, without reference to the particular configuration of circumstances. So, for example, the Kurukshetra war, it's not that different than what's going on in the US between the Democrats and the Republicans, right? Where they cannot compromise on anything. So you can see that the patterns of the Bhagavad Gita and even the Mahabharata for that matter, they keep replicating themselves. So that's what makes these books timeless. They are in fact, what our professor, Dr. Vishwa Adluri, called them, these are what are called archetypal narratives, archetypal histories, archetypal narratives. So embedded in these archetypal narratives, you and I can find our own life reflected, our own challenges expressed, and our own questions asked, and answers to our own questions given, and arguments made. So it makes it all the more exciting and interesting, no matter where we are and what age we are at, and so on and so forth. So with that, let's conclude today. Gopiji, thanks very much. I hope we have a full class starting winter quarter. Thanks everybody for joining and participating. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.